All right. So we are going to start again. See if this works better this way. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. So if we look at the domains we have, remember we started off with, for instance, my domain I have here is this 2008, and mine was K. Vonberg. All right, so I created this kvonberg.com as the first forest and the first domain. This is my root forest and also my root domain. And then we added this 2012, right? So I basically had DC1 running. And from when DC1 was running, we did the Active Directory services install, and the AD, after we did the ADDS, and then we basically did this promo, right? It created the domain for mine was kvonberg.com. Okay? I then brought in DC2, did the exact same thing, okay? Ran basically Active Directory services, and then ran our promo. Okay, and what was different was this is a 2008 R2, so we ran basically DC promo directly from the command prompt to get the domain and forest created in 2008 R2. And in 2012, this is my 2012 R2 box. It's a two-step procedure. We basically first run ADDS. Actually, we didn't actually run ADDS in 2008 R2. To be honest, we just kind of ran DC promo, and that basically did it. So we ran this DC promo, and then we created that domain. So the second domain controller. Okay, the second machine that I brought on here, when I run this Active Directory services, and then promote, again, it's going to join the existing forest, and it's going to join the existing domain. So then it creates the same thing, this kvonberg.com. So now I have two domain controllers, okay? So I've got DC1 and DC2 that both belong to the exact same forest, the exact same domain, okay? Now, what I said we're going to do next is we're going to bring in a third server, and we're going to create a child domain, okay, of kvonberg. Okay, so when we expand our operations to Europe, okay, I want to create a Europe domain. So now I'm going to bring over DC, and I'll bring over here DC3. Let's call it, sure, DC3. And when I do DC3 now, and I do a DC promo, so now when I go there and run my Active Directory services, and then the promo, am I going to join the existing forest? Yes. Yes. I want to keep it the same forest. Am I going to join the existing domain? No. I'm going to create a new domain. So I'm going to go in there, and I'm going to create a new domain now over here, Europe.kvonberg.com. So now I have DC3 running, and it's actually, you could call it DC3 or DC1 of Europe, but this is a domain controller for the domain of Europe. So now I have this new domain of Europe, and I still have my existing domain of kvonberg. Okay? But this domain, the fully qualified domain, becomes europe.kvonberg.com. And the fully qualified of the server becomes dc3.europe.kvonberg.com. Okay. Question?
Is that a 2012 R2?
Yes, and this will be a 2012 R2 box.
So you want the computer name to be DC3?
Well, it doesn't matter. If you name something else, it's fine. I mean, as long as you know what it is. I mean, here, I'm just going to go ahead and name it DC3 because I think it's going to be standardized with our naming convention. But you could call it, Europe DC. 1 or DC, whatever, as long as you know that, the important thing to know is that these two domain controllers are for the domain of Kvonberg. This domain controller, DC3, is only for the domain of Europe. Okay? So then, if we then now look at our FSMO roles again. Okay? So you guys are going to learn all about our FSMO. You guys should know these FSMO roles. Look at the inside and out. Okay? So if we look back and said, okay, here's my FSMO roles. Okay, so my FSMO roles over here now. First of all, how many total operation masters do I have in this scheme right here?
3. No. 5.
Good Lord, what's going on, man? Come on. Yeah, that's not. I'm not teaching you guys good, man. So total operation masters. I want to know how many total operation masters I have. How many domains do I have, first of all?
2.
2 domains. Okay. So the first thing we say, how many forests?
1.
Okay. So if we look here, I have 1 forest. Okay. That forest is Kvonberg, but I have 2 domains. Okay. So forest wide. How many forest-wide FSMO roles do I have?
2.
2, right? So these 2 stay the same. They are what?
The schema.
The schema.
It's domain
Naming. Okay? It should be getting easier. Okay? We keep, right? Now, I have 2 domains. So each domain is going to have its own PDC, its own RID, and its own infrastructure. Right. So how many for these then is there going to be? 6. So there's basically going to be, for my Kvonberg domain, there's going to be 1, 2, 3. And then for the Europe domain, there will be 1, 2, 3. And these 1, 2, 3s will be your PDC, your RID, and your infrastructure. Correct. Okay? So, you can see now that, yeah, you're going to have 6, 7, 8 total operation masters in this scheme. Okay? So that's what you guys should have, it didn't work. But does it make more sense now? So in terms of, now your forest operation masters, they're going to stay constant no matter how many domains you add. Okay? Now, what's another interesting in this scenario? How many global catalogs do I have? 3. Because your 2008 R2, because it's 2008, it's the first one, it'll be a global catalog. Your 2012 R2, since it'll default as a global catalog because it's 2012 R2. You have a new domain of Europe, that's going to have its own global catalog. So again, what was unique about global catalogs from a regular domain controller? Global catalogs have what in the forest and what versus a regular domain controller?
Schema.
So let's just say I have now another DC4, okay? Because all of these are global catalogs, okay? So let's just say I put in DC4, okay? So if I put in another server called DC4, and I don't make this a global catalog, it's purely a domain controller, not a global catalog, okay? So what's the difference between this domain controller in terms of not being a global catalog and these other global catalog servers? Eric?
Well, they know about each other, everything about, they share the same information.
Yeah. So a global catalog server has, well, first of all, let's look at domain. This is the domain of K. von Berg. So domain controllers for the domain of K. von Berg only have basically objects, users, computers, groups, Active Directory objects in the K. von Berg domain. So the domain controllers for K. von Berg know about the K. von Berg domain. Domain controllers for my Europe domain know about users, groups that are in the Europe domain. Right? Now, if I have DC4, it doesn't know anything about K. von Berg in terms of really all of the objects in the user in there because it's part of the Europe domain. So these are completely separate domains. All right? Domains are kind of a security boundary. Now, what's interesting about a global catalog server is a global catalog server has every object in the forest. It's going to have every user account in the entire forest in its database, but a subset of the attributes. Okay? Meaning that my domain controllers in the K. von Berg domain, they hold every single AD object in that domain and every single attribute of every single object, right? So it's a gigantic blueprint for that domain, right? Now, if I have a global catalog that is a domain controller that is also a global catalog, it will actually have a database of every single object in the entire forest, but only a subset of the attributes. Okay? Whereas the domain controller in its own domain, right? It's going to have basically every single object in its domain and all of the attributes for that. Okay? Question, Eric, or comment?
Question, so could you have, let's say, Ken V in that domain and Ken V in the other domain, and they wouldn't be a conflict?
Yeah, because in different domains you could. Yeah, different domains you're able to create kind of the same user account in different domains. We'll be able to do that when we create our other domain. You'll see. So now some stuff is forest wide, some stuff is domain, but domain wides are basically those are their independent security boundaries. So you should be able to create the exact same user in a different domain. I think it won't error out. Okay. Any other questions? So the whole thing is that all of these servers right now are global catalogs, and they're all the same. But what I'm trying to get at is that when you start having multiple domains, and you have 6, 7, 8 domains or 10 domains in a real big network, only a few of those servers are going to be global catalogs. And so global catalogs, since they house every single object in the entire forest, if you put them across, WAN links, would stuff start being replicated a lot or a little bit versus the regular domain controller? A lot. I mean, anytime anything, you could have information get replicated. So global catalogs are important in geographical location and in sites, right? Because you don't want to have all your user requests going across the WAN link to pull up information. You want to pull it locally from its site. Okay, so you end up having to put global catalogs in the right location. All right. So anyway, so let's. I'm not sure if I even have the server for this, but well, whatever. We have to build this server out anyway. So if we don't, we'll build this server, our next server in terms of 2012, and we'll end up getting this third DC up and running. Okay. I don't know if it's better or worse for the lights. Still. A little bit of the. We got top of my head now. All right. So let's see what servers I have running on here. So I do have so I built hopefully I built this up. So this was the 2012 Europe DC. So let me turn this guy on. So you guys built this last week, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So we're all on the right page. So let me turn this on and then we'll see. I don't believe we did the DC promo of this or the ADDS. At least I don't think we did. I don't know. We might have. I think so. Yeah, okay. Okay. So while this guy is booting up, let's see what I have. So I'll first check out my server name. I don't know. I probably have a random name. So this is maybe it's Europe DC. I'm just gonna change. Yeah. I changed this to Europe DC. But I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna rename this just for the heck of it, DC3, just because it will. So I'm gonna change the name of this to just DC3. And let's just look at I'll restart this later. I want to look at my IP information. I don't know what IP information we gave, so let's go to our network connections. If it's a domain controller, should it have a static IP or a dynamic IP?
Static.
Static. Okay, so we said here, I'll give it 192.168.137.210. The DNS is 200. And is it part of the domain right now, or is it a work group?
Work group.
Work group. So all I did is change the name. So I'll go ahead and we'll restart this. Should start pretty quickly. And then from here, we'll do a Active Directory DS install, and then we'll do the promotion. Okay, so there's a kind of a two-step procedure. So this guy's rebooting while this thing reboots. Pretty quick. That was a pretty quick reboot. Right? The VMs are pretty quick. Okay, so now I've got the name here, DC3. If yours is different, it's fine. If you named it Europe, it's fine as well. So I'll make the problem steps recorder of this. Okay, so right now this is just in a work group. So I'm going to try to join the domain forest or just do the DC promo without even joining the domain, and we'll see what happens and see if we have to join the domain. That's right, DNS. So I think it'll join, but if it doesn't, we'll have to join it. All right, so I'll go to my roles and features, and under roles and features, what do I want to add here?
ADDS.
Yeah, I want to add my Active Directory domain services. Okay, so versus, you should know these roles are broken up into basically, Active Directory roles, some infrastructure roles, and then kind of some application stuff on here. So you guys should be familiar with, I would say you should know all of these roles and the basics of what they do. Okay, so there's directory services, or the Active Directory domain services. This is basically the Active Directory. If we're just here, there's directory certificate services. This deals with PKI certificates, if you're running your own internal PKI. You've got federation services. What's federation services? What does that do?
Web stuff, or it's a big, beyond the domain.
And what is it used for? What's federation services used for right now?
On web servers, maybe?
Azure. You want to Azure use it? So it's basically when you federate an ID and you have like SSO single sign-on. So you use this when you have Azure AD and you have this ADFS running, and you can have single sign-on. Okay. So and there's the ADLDS. That's the Active Directory lightweight. Okay, service. And this is for doing basically applications, third-party applications that maybe plug into AD. There's this rights management. Okay, you've got an application server, your infrastructure stuff. There is a fax server, interesting, Hyper-V. So this is a VM right now, right? It's a virtual machine. So I can't add Hyper-V right now. But a feature with Server 2016 coming out this year, I believe, in the next couple months, maybe even, is, maybe in the spring, we'll see. But the 2016 will have nested Hyper-V. It's already live in the latest Windows 10 build that came out a few days ago, literally real soon. So you can have Hyper-V in Hyper-V, meaning that you, in a VM, you can install Hyper-V. That's kind of interesting. That's with container and Hyper-V containers. Yeah, brand new feature. Is
What
FYI.
would be a good application for nested Hyper-V?
So the question is, why would you want to nest Hyper-V? So I could think of a couple. Let's say you had a really powerful host machine, and you want to have it host 5 separate companies. Okay, so you could then install 5 Hyper-V machines, enable Hyper-V, and give each of those companies their own instance of a server that because they're only going to see theirs, right? Whereas if you created all of those on one host, and each company created 10 VMs, well, you have to give them access to the Hyper-V host. They'd see everything. They'd see all. Whereas now you're giving them only access to their Hyper. So it's basically a way of containerizing the information even again. All right. So anyways, it's just something that's out there. We'll see if it's going to be big or not. But anyway, so we've got our Active Directory roles, and then there's our Active Directory feature. You should know as well as the features. Some of these are. There's some BitLocker features, branch cast. There is NFS stuff. So there's client for NFS. What's that for?
Network file system.
Yeah, it's talking to Unix.
Unix. Too.
You're talking, so Windows can talk to Unix. All right. You've got some other interesting stuff on here. There's a whole remote access function on here too. So there's all kinds of cool. This has a lot of features that are in this feature. So you should know. One of them that you should always have on your servers is Windows Server Backup. It's a backup utility, so you can make backup. Okay. All right. So we'll just continue on here.
Why didn't you add DNS in the previous stream?
I don't need DNS, okay? I'm only adding Active Directory. DNS will be added automatically and configured automatically. You don't want to add DNS manually. That would then cause headaches in your network, okay? Because DNS it's an Active Directory integrated zone. So I want to let Active Directory install the DNS and configure it. Okay, otherwise, you would have all kinds of problems creating all of those DNS records I showed you guys previously. Okay, so we're only installing right now the Active Directory domain services. Okay, and we aren't even doing the DC promo yet. And next, and then boom, boom. You can restart it if it wants to, and then we'll install. Okay, so this is stop this. This is adding basically my DC3. Okay, so this is 3. This is DC. This is DC3 AD DS role install. Okay, so all I'm doing is adding that role, and then so adding this role doesn't go in and just make it a domain controller and make it a forest or a global catalog. This just kind of gets it prepped and ready so you can do the next step. Okay. All right, so this guy's chugging away. We'll let this run, and then when this runs now, I'll then be able to launch the Active Directory Promotion Wizard, okay, the post installation task. That's the second task on Server 2012. Okay, you didn't have to do this in the last 15 years. Okay, Windows 2000, 2003, 2008, 2008 R2. You just went to a command prompt and you ran DC promo, and you did boom, and you created your forest, you created your domain, you did all your Active Directory stuff over there. Now with 2012 R2, you now have this first part of doing the Active Directory services. And it actually does stuff. So what's cool is that first part, just so you know, it actually auto does your AD prep for you. So we don't have to run the AD. We didn't have to run adprep.exe when we previously did it on our DC2. Okay, because the ADDS already did that for us. All right, so it ran that. we can close that. I don't think it's going to require a reboot right now. But now we do the post installation task. Okay, so I'll do a new recording. And so now is where we're going to do this, promote this server to a domain controller. Okay, this is the second phase of the domain here. So now I have the option of adding a domain controller to an existing domain, adding a new domain to an existing forest, or adding a new forest. So we're going to choose this one. I'm going to add a new domain to an existing forest. And you can see here I can make a child domain, or I can make a tree domain. Here we're going to make this a child domain of our current domain. Okay, if it's going to be a tree domain, then it wouldn't necessarily be a child domain, but it would be at the forest level versus a underneath. But here I want you guys to make a child domain here. So my parent domain, and you've got to authenticate here. So this is K. Von Berg, WAC, administrator for mine. So I'm going to authenticate so I can select the domain. So it's going to try to go and retrieve all of the domains in that forest. And hopefully I put the right domain in. It's taken a little while. I think I should find it. But if we wanted to go check that, I would have to go to my domain. And it found it. Cool. So there's my K. Von Berg. So that's the parent domain. Now the new domain that I wanted is going to be my Europe. Okay, if I can spell this. Europe. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm going to create this new domain of Europe, and we'll continue. And now this is going to be essentially a child domain of kvonberg.com. So it should be like we kind of mentioned before. Now, interestingly enough, what's the domain functional level of the K. Von Berg domain? You remember that is? Let's go look at let's go look at it real quick. Let's bring up our
2008 R2.
yeah, because if we look at, for instance, our 2008, this is the 2008 domain, and it wouldn't matter if we went and looked on the 2008 domain controller or if we looked at the 2012 domain controller. This is going to have a forest functional level and a domain functional level. The forest functional level is 2008 R2. The domain functional level is 2008 R2. That's because we installed the first forest and the first domain on a 2008 R2 server. So that was the highest functional level that existed on 2008 R2. So it makes sense. Okay, just like it would in the real world. This is trying to mimic real world scenarios. So now when we brought in our 2012 box, and here's my 2012 box, is what forest and functional level is this going to have in terms of my 2012 for the same domain?
Same thing.
Exactly. It's kind of a trick question. This is going to have the exact same domain functional level. If I open up my AD users and computers and look at the properties here, it's going to be at a functional level of 2008 R2. Okay? Because that's the domain of K. Von Berg. Okay? So now, interestingly enough, when I do a default install of my Europe, it's defaulting to the domain functional level as 2012 R2. Now I could downgrade it to 2008 R2, but I'll go ahead and leave this at 2012 R2. Because we're going to end up promoting and raising the functional level of our other domains and our other forests. We're going to bring everything up to 2012 R2. Okay? It is by default also going to be a global catalog because it's the first domain controller in its domain. So it's going to be a global catalog. We're going to put in the our directory services password, so that same one. Okay, and then next. And then it's going to create this DNS delegation. Okay, that's by default. It's giving you the credentials for that. You want to leave that the same. Okay. The NetBIOS name should be the same. This NetBIOS name is going to be Europe. Okay, so it's going to find that, and it should default here as Europe. It's going to take a little while to find it. The FQDN is going to be would be europe.kvonberg.com. Okay, but just the domain here is just Europe. And then next, and it's going to give us our default paths. Our information is fine. We'll go there and we'll check this. We'll look at all of our information. This looks good. Tells you the basic info for this. And then we'll hit next. It's going to do a prereq check, see if it finds anything that's drastically, out of whack. I think this should be okay, unless it finds something we're not expecting here. And it just gave me everything fast, a couple of things that maybe they're just a warning, but that's fine. So we're going to go ahead and install. And then it's going to chug away. So while this is installing, I'll stop this guy. We'll save this.
Didn't you promote to 2012 already?
This is the third domain controller that we have in our forest. Okay? So we had DC1, which was part of mykvonberg.com, 2008 R2. We had DC2, which is a co-domain controller for the first domain. This third domain controller now is a brand new domain. I created a brand new domain of Europe. Okay, so we haven't done this yet. Okay, so we'll save this. This was our DC. This is DC3. So this is a new Europe domain in existing forest. Okay, so it's a new domain in a existing forest. Hopefully that saves. Okay, I think it's going to reboot here. Question?
I'm trying to figure out, we promoted the 2012 machine.
That was for our first domain. Our first domain.
I'm trying to figure out why the functional level still says it's 2000.
Because we'll come back to that. Okay, that's a good question. Okay, we'll come back to that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Okay, when I diagram some stuff out. All right. So the question was, we had so we started off again with DC1. DC1 was a 2008 R2 box. We created the domain here. Mine, for instance, is K. Vonberg. The forest functional level and the domain functional level here are 2008 R2. When we brought in DC2 and joined that domain, even though this was a 2012 R2 box, when we joined it, we still stay at the same functional level and the same domain level. Now we can, since we have a 2012 box, we can choose to raise the functional level, but we haven't done that yet. Okay? And that's by default, so we can go there and manually raise the functional level. Okay? Does that make sense? Just because you introduce a newer version of Windows into your DC, your domain, doesn't automatically going to just increase the functional level. Okay? Because there's a forest functional level and there's a domain functional level.
What happens to the 2008 box when you raise the functional level to 12?
Well, we added a 2012 R2 box, so the 2012 R2 box updated the entire schema to be 2012 R2, so it can basically be at that level. So it's fine because the 2012 R2 actually upgraded our Active Directory schema. Okay, and it did that via AD prep that ran in the background when we were doing the ADDS install of our 2012 R2 box. Okay? Normally you do that manually. For previous versions you had to run the AD prep manually, and you'll see all the stuff it does. And it actually upgrades the schema. Okay? But we're still at that functional level because we told it that way. It's one click, and in 3 seconds I can upgrade. But I want you guys to do that manually yourself. Okay?
I guess the thing that I'm wondering about is at what point is the 2008 going to be unable? I mean,
It won't. It'll be fine forever. Absolutely, you can run that thing forever. It's one. We're going to go native. So
So
because
the level is 12, 16, whatever comes after that. 2008 will still.
well, eventually they phase them out. I mean, they support 1 or 2 versions below. Like if you had a Windows 2000 domain controller, that only supports a certain level. So you can go back 1 or 2 versions. Okay. All right. So now you can see that I'm logging on. I'm not logging on to my K Vonberg, but I'm logging on to the Europe domain. Okay, so same password. So we'll go ahead and log on here. And so the account that I'm logging on here is basically I'm logging on with this Europe user. This is essentially the domain controller, the administrator for the Europe domain. Okay, so now I've got a whole set of, and if we go here and pin our admin tools to the taskbar and pull up my Active Directory, users and computers, this is now targeting my Europe domain. All right, so do I have all the information with regards to stuff that existed over in my other domain that's on there? All right, so right now I just have information that's in my domain. Okay, so I don't have any computers. I've got my domain controller. That's it. I don't have all the AD structure that exists in my K Vonberg. This is the Europe domain. So when I create a user, all right, so if I go and create a new OU here, and I call this my managed users. So this is managed users now for my Europe. I mean, I'll leave it at managed users, but it's actually managed users for my Europe domain. And now I can create users in here, but these users belong to what domain?
Europe.
The Europe domain. These are totally independent of my users that exist in my 2012 K Vonberg domain. Right? See how this has managed users and departments. So this has all the, this stuff here is not, this information in my K Vonberg domain is not replicating to my Europe domain. They are separate entities, separate security boundaries. So I can go there and have my managed users in my K Vonberg domain, my departments. I can go there and create a new, OU over here for my accounting. Okay, and my sales. I can go and create an accounting user over here. So we'll go ahead and create a new, this is kind of what Eric was talking about earlier. If I create a accounting 1 user and give it a logon name of accounting 1, the fully qualified logon is accounting 1 at K Vonberg, or the domain K Vonberg WAC accounting 1. Okay, so this user exists in the K Vonberg domain. And then next, we'll go ahead and give this guy a password. Okay. And then next, oops, my password didn't match. Okay. And now that was a accounting 1 user in the K Vonberg domain. Well, now I can hop over to my Europe domain, and I can do the exact same thing. Here's my managed users. I'll go ahead and create a new OU. This is my departments. And then I can create, again, another OU, for instance, of my I create that in the right place here. Yeah, department. Another OU for my accounting. Okay, so these are completely different domains, and now I'll go ahead and create an accounting user over here. And who thinks I'm going to be able to create the exact same user? Yeah, accounting 1 user, because right now this accounting 1 user, you can see, is actually logging on to @europe.kvonberg, and the UPN logon is Europe WAC accounting 1. Okay, so I should be able to create this. I don't think it'll error out because they're different domains. Now, you know, depending upon your hierarchy, you probably wouldn't want to have the exact same users that exist in different domains. But you see, I created it's a security boundary. So I created the exact same user account, same everything, same first name, same last name, same logon name in my Europe domain and in my kvonberg domain. Okay. Question, Eric?
So if you wanted to see the user in the on the Europe domain, you can see it from the kvonberg domain, right?
Well, not really. So if we go and look over here.
The global catalog would show everything.
Yeah, but the global catalog has the ability to find all the objects, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's just a global catalog. Now, I'm not going to see those. I'm not going to see that user in here. Even if I find, if I try to find and I find accounting, okay, I'm only expecting this to show that one user.
Can you pull down? Can you pull down the other domain?
Yeah. Okay, so if I pull, but right now I'm searching in kvonberg. Now if I search over here for Europe
There's entire directory
and find that, now I find here. And then if I go and search the entire directory and find that, now I show both. Okay? So it just depends on where you're searching. And that's because there's the ability to search at the domain, the ability to search over here, the top level. Now let's go see if we do the same thing in the other domain. So now if I go pull over my Europe domain, and over here now, if I do the same thing, if I go and find, and you see here, I can search basically the same directory as well, all the different domains that's in there. And this has a computer account as well. So if we go look at the built-in accounts here, so this is the administrator group over here. So here's my administrator group for my domain of Europe. And then look at now, I have this domain admins and then enterprise admins. Well, what's the difference between a domain admin and an enterprise admin? What's that, Eric? What's the difference between a domain admin and an enterprise admin?
I guess an enterprise admin now would have control over the whole forest.
Yes. So the domain admin is specifically for that domain. The enterprise admin is the most powerful. That actually exists in every domain in the forest. So that administrator actually has a little more power. So what's more powerful is Europe WAC administrator more powerful than kvonberg WAC administrator? This enterprise admin is actually the most, because it's actually part of the domain. If we go look at the user accounts now, let's see if we can find our users for administrator. So this here user is the administrator for Europe. Okay? So that's the Europe administrator. Now if we go look at the user for our primary domain over here, if we go look now, now I'm in the kvonberg domain, and we go look over here at our users, this administrator account is kvonberg. Okay, this administrator account is a member of the enterprise admin. So if we go look at everything else you can see. So if we go look at the enterprise admin group, here's my enterprise admin. So the enterprise admin, only the kvonberg administrator of the root domain is a member of that enterprise admin group. So the administrator of Europe domain is not in this group. Okay, so therefore the first administrator in the first domain is much more powerful. Okay, it's actually enterprise admin. I just want you guys to, just so you guys understand that. So now if we were also go into the question, Eric.
Yeah, well, is the enterprise admin is always there, or does it get created after you create a subdomain?
It's there. It should be there. Enterprise admin is there. Your first forest is there. So now if we pull up our domains and trusts, now we can see we have information in domains and trusts. Because now I've got my K. Vonberg domain, and I have my Europe domain. And we can see here now in the trust that K. Vonberg here is the parent, okay? And you're going to have the parent type, and there should be another trust where you're going to see that the Europe is going to be the child domain of that, okay? So and we can go look at that in our Europe domain and pull up the domains and trusts over here. As long as stuff's replicated over, we should pull it up. And so now our Europe stuff over here, and it has trust. So it's basically the parent domain over here is K. Vonberg, okay, and it trusts that. So there's this whole concept of trusts, and you can see here that Europe is the child domain, okay, and it's a transitive trust. And so that transitive trust means that when you start having, when A trusts B and when A trusts B and B trusts C, by default, then A trusts C. Okay, that's the whole, C trusts A. It's that whole thing of transitive when you have stuff in between them. Okay.
It's
So-
two-way trust?
Yeah, these are two-way trusts, correct? Yes. Okay. So we just kind of increased the complex a little bit. Now, what's interesting now also is if you pull up, we go back to our 2012 R2 box, and we pull up. I've showed you guys the Active Directory Administrative Center, correct, in here? This is a new tool in 2012 R2. This is Active Directory Administrator versus Active Directory Users and Computers. So now this guy over here, basically, you can go there and connect. It's the same thing, but you're able to actually connect different domains. You can see the K. Vonberg. It'll actually go there and it can pull up a different domain of this as well. So this is just another place to pull Active Directory information on here. And you can actually change domain controllers. You can do the same thing. This is basically the server 2012 version of Active Directory Users and Computers. There's just kind of a different interface for that. Okay. I just wanted to kind of mention this. We'll play around a little bit this Active Directory Administrative Center later on when we start doing stuff in there. Okay. All right. So I'm going to give you guys the next half hour, 45 minutes to get your domain created, your Europe domain, and that way you're going to have basically have two full-blown domains in one forest. Okay.